What is up, you guys? Welcome back to another episode of Ask the Amateur. I'm KP, and I'm answering the questions I get asked most as an aspiring IFBB Bikini Pro. And this episode is kind of a little bit of everything because I just finished up my hair saga, which is a different episode, and I am on a 2.5 hour road trip. So I have a lot I want to talk about today. So buckle in because this episode is going to be a good one. Hi, I just had an order ahead for Kristen. Thank you. Placebo effect. A decaf Americano for the ride home. Thank you. You too. You guys, I'm obsessed with my hair. I don't usually drink out of a straw, but I kind of feel like it. Now I'm paranoid that this isn't actually decaf, you know? And we're off. I am currently less than 8 weeks out. Today was a rest day. Today was a check-in day. And if you don't know, on my rest days, I take full advantage of self-care, which is why I am doing what I just did. So today's check-in marks the end of my rebound phase. We did a rebound in the middle of my competition prep. So I started my prep at technically 22 weeks out, but the first 2 weeks were like pre-prep, right? So basically the first 8 weeks of my prep landed me where I could be ready in 4 weeks, which was like a very powerful place to be in. So at 12 weeks out, we kind of transitioned into a rebound. And so the last 3.5, 4 weeks, I had a birthday. I got to visit my family for my birthday. And during this time, my food was higher. We changed my training frequency and my training cadence, and we're really just trying to improve going into the show. And so with this change in phases, I also kind of had to change my mindset a little bit. So it's been very interesting. And because today's check-in, we are now switching gears, I'm reflecting a lot on this. And so the question I'm going to answer today is, what peptides do I do? And this is actually a question I get asked often because my husband and I, we own a wellness and aesthetic center. So I have easy access to peptides. But I'm going to take this a step further because it's not just peptides that I get asked about. It is also other superficial tools or whatever is trending right now, right? So peptides are all of the rage. And this is a loaded question because there are tools that I certainly do lean on from time to time, and they do make a huge and significant difference in my health, wellness, and fitness journey in general, but also in my goals with this competition prep. However, when it comes to peptides, I am taking 0 peptides. Believe it or not, I am not doing any peptides at all whatsoever. Have I tried peptides before? Yes, I have. I have tried BPC 157. That one was mostly for my gut, so I took it orally. I also did injections of BPC 157. I have also tried GHK-CU, and this is the beauty peptide, which is super well known for hair, skin, and nails. Peptide wise, those are the 2 things I have done and tried, and I am no longer doing either one of them. Other things that I have done and tried at Forever Young are, I did a PRP hip injection 2 improvement seasons ago. Did it help? Yes. Am I glad I did it? Yes. However, it has not been as life-changing as the mobility work that I have implemented. And had I started with mobility work, the hip injection would not have been necessary. Other things I do at Forever Young are laser hair removal, hydrofacials. I've shared these in other episodes, but today specifically, I am talking about peptides, and I do not do any peptides. And the reason for that being, I don't need to. Just because I have access to these things doesn't mean that I need to do them. But the 2 things that I want to talk about today are 2 tools that I actually do utilize. They have made a significant difference in my journey. So I want to talk about what they are and why I use them and how I use them. But before we get into that, because I am ending this rebound phase in the middle of prep, I have been reflecting quite a bit because this phase has felt really bittersweet coming to an end. And it's because I wasn't expecting to learn so much about myself in this phase. So much of our health, wellness, and fitness journey, no matter what our goals are, big or small, is mental. And the reality is, all of these superficial tools that people ask me about on a daily basis, whether that's sauna, cold plunge, peptides, whatever, these are simply distractions. Because it is so much easier and more exciting to try out something new and trendy rather than doing the work, doing what you know you need to do, and mastering the basics. And that's not to say these things cannot optimize or enhance your progress and your goals, because they absolutely can. However, if you do not have a strong foundation in place, these things don't matter. And oftentimes, what happens is when people do try these superficial hacks, they don't really know what is what. When they're like, I'm not really sure, I didn't really notice a difference. And so when I ask them, why do they think that is? It's often because, oh, well, I had a lot of stress in my life, I was traveling a lot. And what they're really saying is, their habits were inconsistent. Diet, exercise, lifestyle, all of the things. Because the truth is, these tools only work if the foundation is stable. If your consistency with your habits is chaotic, you're not going to be able to tell what is what because there's too many variables. So in my personal opinion, unless you have a strong foundation in place, you're wasting your money. And so where I'm at in the journey, reflecting on this rebound, I thought it was a good time to answer this question because this prep is unlike any prep I have ever had. And the reason for that being, I took my improvement season so seriously. And it has put me in the best position possible, so much that my body was so responsive in the first 8 weeks of this prep that it has allowed us to implement new strategies this entire time. And the reason my body was so responsive was because I did not mess around with any of the added variables that cause frustration that I normally do. That being overuse of caffeine, stevia, sauces, anything of the sort. I decided to lock in so hard, and I have learned so much about myself and my body in this process by doing that. So I talked about this in previous episodes. I would do these gut resets, right? Every couple of weeks in prep because I was adding all of these things to my food and it was really messing with my digestion. And so this prep, I have just taken action week over week to hold myself to a higher standard in any way possible to make this prep as good as possible. And that's exactly what has happened. And this started in my improvement season when I made some necessary changes in my life that were very uncomfortable. I made the decision to not do hair anymore, to fully immerse myself and give all of myself to this pursuit. I changed my gym environment, I changed my home environment, and I set firmer boundaries with my work environment, meaning I'm working from home more often. I'm pouring myself into areas of the business that I actually add value. I limit the amount of health coaching clients that I take. I'm leading a 6-week challenge. I'm just being way more intentional with my time and my energy. And these things alone have made a significant difference. But as far as my diet goes, my entire improvement season, I was locked in. I was locked into my meal plans and I took every single day seriously. I used every single day to get better. And so the tool that I want to talk about that I used to lean on a lot more earlier on in my gut journey, because my fitness journey started as a gut journey. And I've talked about in previous episodes how I've incorporated enzymes this improvement season, how I essentially, my gut reset that I was doing every couple of weeks of my improvement season, I've just applied that to my life at this point. That's just my new normal. That's my new standard with myself. And so the tool I'm going to tell you guys about and talk you through, I used to lean on a lot more. And in this prep, I've had to lean on it a lot less. And that is colon hydrotherapy or colonics. I started doing colonics in my early 20s when my gut was an actual disaster. And it gave me a ton of relief. It truly did. So up until this prep began, up until I started holding myself to this higher standard, up until I changed my enzymes, I was going about every 4 to 6 weeks for my colonic appointments for maintenance. And after I made these changes during my prep, my body started working better and I had to use them a lot less. And so I'm going to take you through, just like going through this reset right now, switching phases. I did just do a colonic because that's what tools are for, to lean on them when you need them, not to rely on them all of the time. And I'm going to take you through how I just applied it. But the same thing that I mentioned with that PRP hip injection, doing the work, making the necessary changes to have a stronger foundation with my diet all of the time, instead of adding these variables that just make my food taste better and paying the price of just like living with this level of discomfort, but having to lean on this tool a lot more frequently. That's really just a realization that I've had when it comes to using this tool. I'm at a point in the journey now where I have mastered myself to the level and done the work and taken the steps to be able to use this as less of a crutch and more as a tool. What is up, you guys? It is 6:55 a.m. It is a Monday and we are a little under 8 weeks out. I'm taking you through myself resetting a bit mentally because we have been in a rebound phase. It's been necessary and I've learned a lot. My coach has learned a lot. It's been good. But I've come to a point in the journey where we're about to switch gears, and I felt it most the last couple days where I just I feel like I need to reset mentally and physically, and not because I've fallen off, because I'm doing everything I'm supposed to be doing. I think just the phase and the mindset of the phase and the time and just all of it, just like birthday time, family time, busy time, like there's just been so much chaos in the last couple weeks. Whereas when we were in that initial push, I was just so locked in mentally in a different way. It's just a different vibe. And that's where I found myself, because when the food is higher, I've certainly felt more lethargic, and it's felt like I've needed to dig a little bit deeper in a different way. You know, we're also getting closer, so there's a lot of variables, but I do feel like for me, when the food is higher, the rest is more frequent. Similar to my off season, like arguably that phase is harder. And so what I found with my food being higher, we also switched up my supplementation a little bit. My digestion has been so slow. And when my digestion is slow, I am not my best self, you guys. It really takes a toll on me mentally, physically. I notice it on my skin, my drive. I really notice it. You know, I'm doing everything I'm supposed to be doing. I'm on top of my water. I'm on top of my gut supplements. I'm doing all the things I can. It's just the added food and my schedule is the one area I've been slipping, because it's been pretty inconsistent. And then with the higher food, I like to space my meals out a little bit more, or give myself a little extra time in the morning to digest, so that my meals get pushed back further. My routine has gotten a little bit more lax. You know, for me being in prep and really just trying to fine tune and find ways to get better every week, this is the way I want to get better this week. And so right now I'm on my way to a colonic appointment. I don't like to lean on these often, and I don't. In this prep, I've literally gotten one. This is the second one I've gotten, and I'm just doing this because we're switching phases. Things are pretty backed up right now. I just really need a good reset. So last week for my birthday, I did get to have a steak. I traveled, and pretty much since then, my digestion has been so off. So me trying to help myself, I've been spacing out my meals a little bit differently, just trying to give my body a little break, doing some abdominal massage, but I just need a little bit more help. And so I have allies on speed dial in my corner. My friend Autumn, she does colonics for me, and so we're doing an early morning appointment. It is currently 7:05 a.m. and I'm pulling in. I like to do these fasted first thing in the morning, and so basically what a colonic is, it's colon hydrotherapy. They stick a tube in your butt and they pump water through your colon, and it's a nice cleanse. I much prefer doing this over taking some harsh laxative. And again, I lean on these from time to time, but it is certainly not a quick fix. So we are pulling in right now. We're gonna get a little bit of relief. I'm hoping this is just like a nice reset. Typically afterwards, my mental clarity is so much better. My energy is so much better. My skin is so much better. I've been breaking out a little bit. So this honestly wasn't a planned thing. I was laying in bed last night and I was like, I wonder if she can just get me in really quick. And the answer was yes. So that's what we're doing. You guys, I should have done a before and after, and actually I have video of me training yesterday and like you can just see my poor stomach. I am so happy I went and did that. Also, can we just talk about April weather? It smells like spring. I just love it so much. TMI, but there is no better way to start your day than with a bowel movement. Like, I literally don't even care because it's the truth. And there is nothing worse than not being regular. And I've actually struggled with that my entire life. So I'm so happy that I went and did this morning. I did bring my mushroom coffee. The thing with me when it comes to digestion and what I've learned with getting colonics specifically is it's not even how I look. I don't care about how I look. It's how I feel, not just even mentally, because definitely already I have like a clearer brain. Like the last couple of days, I just have not been a high functioning human. Like my brain fog is just like, I can't start a task and even like get halfway into it. My brain is just so foggy. But the kicker is how your digestion affects you emotionally. When my digestion is slower, I definitely notice I'm way more irritable. I just like have zero patience and I'm just like not my best self. And I definitely felt that the last couple of days. On the table just now, like as you're releasing, you just feel every emotion. You can feel like all of the anger and pain and like sadness, like just exiting you. And it is so bizarre, but it's always such a good reminder of like how important being regular is. Sometimes I get a colonic and I'm just like completely drained and it makes things worse and it takes me like a whole night to like recover, or the opposite. My brain is immediately clearer. I feel like I have more energy. I just feel like a huge weight is lifted because I cannot imagine waking up today and just like having to stuff more food in me. I feel like this is gonna help me like reset, not just physically obviously, but mentally too, going into this next phase. I mean, we have so much time and it feels like such a great spot to be in. Like I've said it a million times, but this prep has just been so wonderful. So I'm really excited to lock back in. And again, I don't want to say I wasn't locked in, but you have to like make a mental shift when you're in a different phase. And this rebound required me to like push deeper. Like I had to go to some dark places some days. We were definitely able to improve and are going to continue improving this prep, which is really exciting. And I think this is the point too where it kind of shifts from the amateur to the pro level. Like obviously I'm not a pro yet, but I'm just saying arriving to this point before earning my title feels really cool. So 8 weeks out, gut is good. We are resetting. I'm just really staying on top of all of the things so that I can just have like the best season, the most confident season. Like I'm just feeling good. Like this at this point in my life, this is just my lifestyle. I feel like I've truly arrived as an athlete where my day and my life revolve around getting better every single day and looking and feeling my best and being an ambassador for the bikini division. I feel really happy. But this is a very necessary reset in kind of how I go about it. Another realization I've had on the other side of this rebound in regards to my training and how my body is working better is because I started implementing mobility work early on this season. I have posted several episodes about this. This mobility work has really just been life-changing, to be completely honest with you. So what came up in this rebound for me, trying to like really maximize my time in the gym, because historically in prep, I've had to just push and continue pushing. And instead, we're implementing all of these strategies. And so mentally, I'm thinking like, this needs to be harder. I need to be suffering. And it's been very confusing for me because the work that I'm putting in with the mobility work, I don't have these aches and pains that I normally did that would like make me dread going to my training. Because normally at this part in the journey, it should be pain and suffering, right? And instead, I'm eating more food, I'm having less aches and pains, I'm lifting more weight in this rebound than I was in my improvement season. And week over week, I'm getting stronger. So when you do things the right way in your improvement season and in a rebound, I truly believe it is arguably harder than pushing during prep, because when the food is higher and you're pushing your body in a different way, like the added food makes you feel more lethargic and you kind of have to dig deep in a different way. You know, when you're more depleted, when you're more hungry, you're also seeing a lot more physical change. That kind of push and drive, it's just a different kind of hard. You know, it's more gratifying when the weight is going down and your physique is like rapidly changing. You're getting leaner every time you look in the mirror. But when you're in a rebound or you're in your improvement season and you're doing it the correct way, trusting the process, trusting your body, eating the food, doing the work, understanding the purpose of that phase, you just have to dig deep in a different way. And so for me, during this rebound in particular, it was almost confusing because in my head, I'm like, I don't feel like I'm doing it right. I don't feel like I'm suffering enough. I don't feel like I'm hungry enough, because honestly, I wasn't hungry at all. In fact, I was at the point where it's like, I think if I ate less food, I would feel better. And historically in prep, you know, you're just waiting to be fed up, almost like food is the reward. And my entire relationship with food in that aspect, because of having a proper improvement season, has really changed so much that at the end of this phase, I am ready for less food. I do not want to eat this much because I do not want to feel this way. Like, I'm ready to push. So really what it has come down to is earning to get to implement these new strategies, because these strategies are no good if you do not have a strong foundation in place, if you are not disciplined enough to implement them. And same with any sort of diet, same with intermittent fasting, carb cycling, refeeds, same with consecutive high days, same with meals off plan. Just like the superficial tools and the whole point of this episode, all of these strategies, it's the same concept. If the foundation isn't there, applying these strategies is just adding another variable, another layer of confusion. And the reality is, you guys, in competition prep, your habits will be exposed real quick. I've just really been reflecting a lot on what it's taken to get me to the point that I'm at, because I always say I'm the most sensitive girl in the world. And I think the reality is I am just hyper aware of how things make me feel. And that has come from taking myself more and more seriously, but also from just being a student of this work and of myself, because it has actually required a lot of work this season too. Like specifically with my training, like adding in this mobility work, I've had to relearn many movements, like my RDLs, because when you correct the limitations in your body, you move differently. But it's exciting in a sense because now you're able to target different muscle fibers because you no longer have these limitations. And so staying open to doing the work and just committing to continue to improve and to get better, that's really what keeps you progressing. Implementing these new strategies like this push phase that we just went through, like I've had to relearn my limits and what overreaching feels like, because you get to a place with yourself, you get comfortable in your routine. But the thing you have to understand is life is always going to be asking something of you. Like that is the one thing that you can guarantee is going to be the variable that is ever changing. So while you are doing the same training week over week over week over week, the variable that's changing is the chaos in your life. And that could be chaos in your mind, chaos in your circumstances. There is so much out of our control in our everyday life. And so this is another topic of conversation that we'll get to in another episode, but like constantly changing your training is often a reason why people aren't getting progress. So touching on all of these tools and how a strong foundation is needed in place first for any of it to matter is number one. For me specifically, in this prep and in this rebound, taking myself seriously, holding myself to a higher standard is what has allowed me to implement all of these new strategies. And being able to implement these new strategies has made this experience so much more enjoyable. And the other thing that came up for me during this rebound in regards to like testing my limits, right? You know, challenging myself with where I'm at in the gym, pushing my limits with recovery, with training, understanding my body, understanding my strength. But I want to touch on the food aspect of this because a lot has come up for me in regards to food as well. Certainly from a digestion standpoint, like that is always like my number one priority is to have like wonderful digestion, right? And then from having a good improvement season, I'm now more aware of how food is making me feel, like specifically in the amounts that I'm eating. How I mentioned more food makes me feel more lethargic. Way less food makes you feel more depleted, and then kind of like having that sweet spot. But then also implementing these strategies so you're not completely pushed down and depleted for so long. And I think that's where people get it twisted a little bit, either from an athlete standpoint or when it comes to dieting in general. Because you can have a very enjoyable dieting experience if you have a strong foundation in place and you are implementing these strategies. It doesn't have to be pain and suffering and misery if you have a strong foundation in place first and you have the right guidance. But if you don't have the foundation and you don't have the discipline, you're falling off and having to play cleanup and catch up every single week, these strategies don't matter. And where I'm at in prep, having the strong foundation is making everything way less extreme, which is making my body way more responsive. A few things have come up in this phase where I have retested my limits and relearned my limits when it comes to food. And I'm going to give you two examples. One has been when reintroducing caffeine, because I really eliminated it like the first 8 weeks. And so I did that specifically because I have abused caffeine in previous preps, and it's really impacted my sleep and my anxiety and my mental state. And so I didn't want to do that this time. So I didn't. But now I'm at a point in prep where I want to lean on caffeine a little bit. So the reintroduction has been interesting because I started by introducing a ghost around 11:30 a.m. And I noticed pretty immediately by introducing this energy drink that it was making me feel like such a tweak. And I had always drank Celsius in the past, but I switched to Ghost because I liked the flavors and it was like new and popular or whatever. And so I started to do some research with my good friend ChatGPT. And I found that the kind of caffeine in Celsius is much more clean because it's coming from green tea extract and Ghost is not. Like the only reason I was able to know this was because I completely eliminated it for a while. And so the reintroduction, I was more like hyper aware, more sensitive to how it was making me feel. So I've kind of relearned this in that sense. But another thing is, I was given the opportunity to have a meal off plan for my birthday. I wanted to go to a fancy steakhouse and we weren't really in the financial situation to do it. I was more excited about being in a place in my journey to even like have the option to do this in the first place. The direction that I want to take this, because when it comes to health, wellness, and fitness, we all have heard that food, nutrition is 80%, right? I truly believe that our mental state around food is what causes most of these issues, because our attachments to food are often not even about the food. We use food for so many things in our life. We use it to connect, we use it to cope, we use it to celebrate, we use it for pleasure. We just don't use it for what it's intended to be used for. And then you get on social media and it gets overcomplicated and overwhelmed by all these fitness influencers and TikToks and viral trends and all of the things. I'm saying this as somebody that has used food for all of these things most of my life. I am saying this as somebody, when I got into bodybuilding, I could have never imagined myself eating a bro meal, chicken and rice, 3, 4, 5, 6 times a day. Like, forget it. Because I was using food to entertain myself. I was using food for pleasure. My relationship with food has really changed. And I don't want to end this episode, so I'm going to try to keep this light on. I apologize about the light, but it's getting dark, but we're really getting into a good part of this conversation, okay? How my relationship with food has changed really started by doing a competition prep during holidays and during birthdays, because the first few times I had a lot of FOMO and a lot of big feelings around missing out on food. As I've matured in the process, and as I've matured in the sport, and as I've matured as an athlete, I actually now prefer holidays and birthdays that are not food focused, because it allows the day and the experience to be what it's actually meant to be about. I literally coach women seasonally through these experiences, the internal battles we have going into these days. Having the opportunity to have these experiences and experience them differently, and experiencing this birthday differently during prep, where I'm not digging deep, doing tons of cardio, super depleted. Instead, I'm well fed and I have the opportunity, if I so choose, to have a meal off plan. Really, it's the mindsets and the attachments that we have around food that I think really get in our way. And so I want to talk about a tool that I have leaned on. And the reason that I started utilizing this tool was for superficial reasons, and it is NAD. And if you don't know, NAD is not a peptide. It is a coenzyme, and it is found in every single cell in our body. And as we age, our bodies produce less. And as we stress ourselves from training, mental, physical, emotional stress, our NAD levels tank, and we feel it everywhere, physically, mentally, emotionally. And NAD got popular because of the Kardashians and Hailey Bieber, because it's known as the fountain of youth. And so you can supplement. The best absorption for NAD is through either IV or injection. But with the IV, you have to sit and do a 3-hour drip. It has to be a very slow drip, and nobody has time, probably, except for Hailey Bieber and the Kardashians, to sit for 3 hours. And so we do injections at Forever Young. And so I started doing this almost 2 years ago now. And the reason that I started doing it was specifically for superficial reasons. It was for the recovery benefits, because it's known to help with cell turnover and reducing inflammation in the body. So I started doing it during an improvement season to help me recover faster. But the reason that I have continued and continue to use NAD is because of the neurological benefits that I've gotten from it. So if you do your research, a lot of people will use NAD for PTSD, trauma, addiction recovery. And so neurologically, the things that I noticed pretty much immediately was more mental clarity, and then just like an overall feeling of well-being. I have always been a very high-strung, anxious, depressed person, just in general, if I'm being totally honest with you. I've had a lot of loss and trauma in my life, in my late teens, my early 20s. I've been prescribed antidepressants and Xanax. I leaned on alcohol. I've leaned on food. And I've misused diet and exercise. And that pendulum has swung far and wide in both directions, mostly to try to control the chaos. Like when we feel out of control in our minds, we just need something to anchor in on, right? And so I've used all of these things to do that. And so people look at bodybuilding like it's an extreme and oh, it's just another thing that you're trying to control. It certainly can be looked at that way, and it can be used in that way. And maybe at the beginning of my bodybuilding journey, that's what it started out as. But over time, with the proper guidance and with the proper support, this process and taking it more seriously, taking myself more seriously, holding myself to a higher standard, it has helped me put myself back together. It has become my anchor. And I truly believe that utilizing NAD as a tool has contributed largely to this. I will say about 3 months into taking these injections weekly, I no longer had any food noise. And after a lot of reflection, I've come to find that food noise is kind of a loaded topic. And I feel like I got really clear on this after my last show. And so I'm going to dive into the whole food noise topic. And this is going to be more of a conversation about like meal plan versus if it fits in your macros, because that's another Ask the Amateur episode that I do have coming. Nutrition questions are the ones I get asked the most. Nutrition is everyone's biggest struggle point. It just is. It's because nutrition, food, it's not just about food. It's what we're using food for. Are we using it to cope? Are we using it to connect? Are we using it to entertain ourselves? And so for me, there's 2 times of year. Historically, I would just really fall off. And it's around September and it's around April, because in September, my father and my stepfather both passed away. And so that time just gets kind of like really dark and heavy for me. And then April has been pretty difficult for me for the last 5 years. And these last 5 years have been the entirety of my bodybuilding journey. And I have been in prep pretty much every single April, with the exception of one when I took an entire year off. Having 5 Aprils to improve and get better, because in April is my grandmother's birthday, who I had a really good relationship with, and she passed away in 2020 after my first bodybuilding show. So if you didn't watch one of my recent episodes, like my grandma is like my why for why I started sharing the journey and why I'm literally even doing this YouTube right now. But being in this rebound and going through another birthday, going through another April without her, when it's normally, you know, this dark time in my life, it's just really made me reflect on my mental resilience, my mental state. Addiction kind of seems like an aggressive word, but what addiction is a habit that you choose to repeat over and over and over again. And we continue to do it because we've always done it. And oftentimes our addictions, or the habits that we choose to repeat, are what is holding us back. In general, people that repeat these addictive behaviors, whatever they may be, your nightly glass of wind down wine, your monthly pint of Ben and Jerry's because you're on your period, your morning croissant, your midday frappuccino, your weekly binge, your nightly binge, your daily intermittent fasting, which leads to your nightly binge. Like, these are destructive habits that we choose to repeat. And oftentimes we choose to remain ignorant to how these habits are actually impacting our goals in the long run. So the whole point of this episode, you guys, is that the real enhancer, the real tool, is a regulated nervous system and mental steadiness. It is doing the work and having a strong foundation in place. Because if you don't, any of these superficial peptides, infrared saunas, ice baths, it doesn't matter. It is just noise. So I hope me sharing my experience of where I've been, where I'm at currently, where I'm headed, like, I hope that it's given you guys some value, because this is something I'm really passionate about. And I share it because I'm here to help. I share it because where I've been has shaped me into the athlete that I am now and into the athlete that I'm becoming. You know, people look at me and just assume that I'm doing peptides or whatever. But even if I was doing peptides or all of the drugs in the world, if I didn't have a strong foundation in place, if I wasn't still doing the work, it wouldn't even matter. Those things enhance your results. They don't give you the results. The work is still required. And it's easier and more comfortable to tell ourselves that that person that has the physique or the body or the job or the life that you want, it's easier to tell ourselves that that person is cheating. Or it's more comforting to get confirmation that that person is using this peptide or that, because it gives us hope that it could give us those results. When deep down, we know that what is required is doing the work we know we're not willing to do. And that's the truth. So to answer the question, am I doing peptides? No, I am not doing peptides. I'm utilizing the tools that I talked about in this episode, and I am doing the work. I have been doing the work for several years, but the work that I've put in is coming to fruition, and I'm getting the body, the life, and the title that I have earned. So if you like this episode, if you got something out of this episode, please leave me a comment and don't forget to subscribe. If you stuck around to the end, I want to thank you for the support. It truly means the world to me. And I will see you guys next week.